Let me call this meeting to order, please. Thanks, everybody. We'd like to welcome everybody. Thanks for everybody coming out tonight for this is an official business meeting of the Lincoln County Board of Education, and it also gives the opportunity for people who want to come and address the board to do so, and we're always glad to have everybody with us. But I'd like to, if you would, join us in the Pledge of Allegiance and start. Mr. Wilson, would you begin?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all very much. Okay, the first action we have to take tonight is to approve the minutes of the February the 4th and February 10th, 2014 board meetings. Can I have a motion? Mr. Curry?
Second.
Mr. Wilkerson seconds. Is that all yes?
Yes.
Okay, now we're down to public comments. Now, I go through this each time for people who may be new, but for those who sign in, you're able to address the board, but we aren't able to converse with you. But if you actually get on the agenda, then we can do both. Now, when I look at the names on here, I think I'm seeing an overlap here, but just in case, we'll make sure. Sue Burton is on here. Now, Sue, were you also under the community rep, or is that someone else?
Community rep.
So it's the same thing, okay. And then Brenda Zimmerman, are you the faculty person, Brenda, or are you just, or you don't know?
I'm a victim.
I know how that goes. Okay. But when we come to the community rep or the faculty rep, with that, is there anybody else that intends to do that, or is Mrs. Zimmerman doing that? I think it's you. Okay. All right. And then we have the GV's, the Guyan Valley Student Council, and that's also on our agenda. So I'm assuming that group also you're the reps. Okay. So what we'll do, we'll just kind of not worry about that pink sheet. We'll just follow our regular agenda. We'll accomplish the same thing here. I just want to make sure that I wasn't eliminating anyone. So the first presenter we'd have would be the Guyan Valley Middle School faculty representative. Is there? Oh.
Since she went the last time, I'll get up this time.
Seniority, I guess.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Well, my name's Tara Gay Chapman, and I teach at Guyan Valley Middle School. And as before, we addressed the board, and we didn't get dialogue, so this time we want some dialogue, please. Our concerns are that we don't have an assistant principal at the middle school, and you're not going to replace Mr. Roy, and we didn't understand as a faculty, number one, why he wasn't replaced this year when he went to West Hamlin. Okay, and then we know that you're not going to replace him for the school year 2014-15. As a faculty, we're concerned that with it being a middle school, we know that the enrollment is down. However, being a middle school, there's lots of things that happen. Hormones are wild, okay? Things happen. Our campus is very large. Our students travel from the main building to the gym. Things happen. Mr. Adkins has to be away for principal meetings or whatever. We don't know what the plan of action is. As a faculty, we want something in writing as to who is in charge. We don't have any staff member that is has administrative background, and so as a faculty member, what do I do? I'm in my classroom, and there's a problem, an issue that an administrator needs to take care of. All right, what am I supposed to do as a teacher? I can't leave my students, all right? And we have a phenomenal secretary, Tara. She can only do so much. So as a teacher, what are we supposed to do? Who's in charge? Can someone tell me that?
Well, you just go ahead, and then we'll address these when you finish.
All right.
Okay?
Again, we have on a daily basis, there's things that happen. I know today Mr. Adkins has dealt with a lot of issues, disciplinary issues. And I know that, there's a few of us that are a little more seasoned than others. And we've been around, and we know that things happen. Mr. Agnes, this is what, his 3rd year. He's doing a phenomenal job. And I know that a little more seasoned principal may be able to handle things a little better on his or her own. And I know that when Mr. Agnes is not there, he's called in sick, Mr. Winters has come and taken charge, and I know that he's all over the place. But again, what is to take place? Can we please have something in writing and say that, you know, for example, if we've had, since he's been gone, we had a little person that was hit in the eye with a snowball, okay? And fortunately, we didn't have to call an ambulance or whatever. But what happens? What if that person had been hit and the eye had been damaged? Okay, do we call a parent? You know, I'm a teacher, but I'm a parent first. And I think that we should all be there. And I think we are. We're there for our students. And, you know, we go in there, and like I tell my kids, I'm not here as your friend. I'm here as a parent, a role model. I'm here to teach you. And, you know, I don't want, or we don't want to be, let's not be, you know, let's be proactive. And I'm afraid that, we're afraid that something will happen and that it'll force us into doing something after the fact. And, you know, with the world that we live in, and we've seen it happen, it can happen in this little area. So that's a concern of mine, a concern of this faculty. You know, we have things all the time. Again, this is a middle school, this isn't an elementary. And again, yes, the enrollment is down, and this might be why you're saying that, you know, I know the budget cuts. However, can you give us a plan? Do we call 911? Do we call someone from the board's office? What do we do? Help us.
Okay. You want to address that, Ms. Lucas, or you can start, and then I'll...
Okay. In any school, whether you have a principal or a principal and an assistant principal, they should already have some sort of a plan for the faculty for issues that occur. That should not come from us. That is each principal's, you know, they're going to have unique situations and unique set of circumstances at their school. So we charge the principals with putting in place a plan of action for their faculty. I'm assuming that you all should already have something, or Mr. Adkins or when Mr. Roy was there should have already had something, so you all would have a protocol to follow when something happens in your classroom, or when something happens outside in the hallway or in the cafeteria. That's something that I would assume was already in place.
Well, when Mr. Ward was there, obviously he was, you know, over discipline. And yes, we did have him to take, you know, he did the discipline. When Mr. Agnes is out of the building, you know, he is the principal and there's no one to take over. You know, there's teachers there again, you know, there's several of us that have been there for a while, and, you know, we can handle minor issues, but again, we have a classroom. All right, we have a class, and my priority, those kids that I have in that classroom, I can't leave those kids unattended to take charge of something. And I can handle minor problems because I've been there. But if there's a major issue that takes place, what are we to do? And again, I know what you're saying, that should be done at a school level. All right, but yet he's the principal and he's out of the building. You know, what is he to do? There's no one there with administrative background, you know, to have this. I mean, usually at schools there is someone at least with an administrative background. There's no one there at our school.
Not necessarily, Terry. We have, I can name another school here in the county that has one principal with no one on staff with administrative background. And there are plans, and I would tell Mr. Adkins that if you need assistance from someone here to help you develop a protocol for your school, we have several people, I'm sure, that would assist you in doing that, so that if you're not there or if you're off the campus, that they would know what to do.
Can I speak up?
Wait just a second.
Okay.
Just your situation is unique in that grade levels, but it isn't unique in that we have other schools that also have a principal that might have to attend a principal's meeting or something like that. And like Ms. Lucas is saying, typically what the principal will do, he or she will put somebody in charge, and should something develop that requires attention, contact the central office or something like that. So it's not unique just to Guyan Valley if you only have a principal, because there are other schools that operate the same way. Not that it's the ideal thing, but it's not unusual that it happens that way.
And I know it does, but I'm just saying with middle school and with our situation being such a large campus and our kids traveling from one to the other, and things happen in between, like the gym and the main building. You know, and again, we have, you know, with safety issue of Mr. Agnes being gone, we have so many different doors, and we do have the camera, but there's still, you know, a way people can get in. And again, it's just being proactive, I guess, and in today's world that we live in, not having that extra person that knows what to do, that extra with assistant principal. You know, you felt a little more secure when we had that extra person. And again, I think that, you know, our children, first and foremost, we don't want anything to happen. And when it does happen, then we think, oh, then we need to go back and fix it. Well, we don't want to do that. We want proactive. All right, so, and again, you know, and unfortunately, we wait till something happens. And we don't want to do that. And that's what I think a lot of our fear is, my fear. You know, because again, I've seen it change. I've been here a little while, and I've seen things change so much. And I've seen the students change so much. And, you know, without someone there to take charge and, you know, help us, that's scary. And I know that each one of you all, you don't want something like that to happen. I mean, you know, your child's there. I have your child in class, and you don't want something to happen to her, nor do I. You know, and I'm there as her parent, and I want to do everything in my power to protect that child, because that's my child when she's not there with you. But again, when certain situations occur and Mr. Agnes isn't there, I trust him wholeheartedly. When he's there and I've got a problem, I call him and he's there. He's there to do whatever he can. He's going to step up. But again, situations occur, and I know that this is not unique. I know that. But again, you know, there has to be something in place. And, you know, I know that each school may be in, you know, a unique situation, but with this being the middle school, and again, hormones and things running wild, something does need to be in place.
Anything else, Ms. Lucas, you wanted to add to that? Okay.
I just want to say, we do have protocols in place. We have our codes, and we have, you know, those things are in place. If I could just bring some clarity, I think, to what she's saying is in the event that I'm gone from the building, I think the concern is what if there's an outlandish behavior or a violent behavior from a child, who's going to be there to, I guess, to help control that situation. If these teachers, they're bound to their classrooms, and that child is out of control, you know, they can't necessarily forsake their classroom to deal with to leave the 99 to go after the one. They can't do that in our situation. And I think that's maybe the concern. It's not that we don't have any protocols or policies in place. We do. It's just in those unique or special circumstances, I think they're just asking for clarification. What is it that we need to do?
Let me ask you, because Mrs. Lucas knows, and I don't know. Do you have a special education teacher there that deals with behavioral students?
We have some folks that are CPI trained. But again, I think it just keeps going back to if that person has a classroom full of students, what do we do with, you see what I'm saying?
That may get back to what, I mean, I'm just going on experience here,
sure,
having dealt with these things, that oftentimes you call in the person who would have the most expertise in that area, and that being, in this situation, sounds to me like somebody that deals with that. And that might mean that somebody else has to kind of monitor their class, but it goes back to what Ms. Lucas has said earlier here, where you have to have a defined way of how you're going to deal with these things. You have a counselor on staff?
Well, not all the time.
Okay,
No,
well,
not full time. And now she's been ripped, so we don't even have that for next year. We know.
well, I'm just trying to think of people who aren't obligated that might be able to fill in. Anything else?
Well, I was going to say that each school, regardless, you should have a crisis plan for these exact same things that she's bringing up, because you have many incidents that occur throughout the year. You should have a team in place and the steps to take, and people that should be identified in order to help with situations. Do you not have that?
Yes.
Okay.
We have that, but again, it's, but it's with Mr. Roy and Mr. Atkins, I mean, being the top, and Mr. Roy is gone, and that was still, we identified that at the beginning of the year, but then Mr. Roy was taken from us.
Well, then you should go back and review and revise that crisis plan, because, you know, we can't, even if you had 4 administrators, you can't ever say that something will not occur. And so you should have a plan in place in order to deal with it. And, you know, we pray that nothing would ever happen. But when you talk about the safety of children, that's exactly what, you know, is first and foremost in their minds. That's why these things should be in place, and that, you know, you should review them often, you know, to make sure that everyone doesn't take this crisis plan or the plan of action that you talked about and put it on a shelf. You all should be able to know, okay, if this happens, Ms. Radley Athens is not here, who's next in charge?
Right.
Whether it is an assistant principal or whether it is a teacher that is someone that can handle a crisis at that moment and make sure that everything is in place. Whether you contact the secretary and they're calling the central office or 911, but that should be in place regardless.
So we could have that, and then we call the central office, and someone could come over there and help us at that
Absolutely.
point.
If that's part of what Mr. Atkins has, that would be part of the plan. We would need to know that we're on that plan and who that is and who that contact person is.
Yeah.
Is it possible that someone from your office could work with Mr.
Yeah,
Atkins on developing that?
That's what I said, we would be happy, any number of people here would be happy to sit with Mr. Atkins and help develop that. But that needs to be part of your faculty as well, to be part of developing and making sure that, but I thought I heard you say you already had something in place, but it sounds like it needs to be reviewed and revised.
It needs to be revamped because we had it at the beginning of the year before Mr. Roy.
Right.
And again, I think the concern as a faculty member, I think, again, all of us are going to jump into place and, you know, if it's to protect our students, we're going to do that regardless. Okay, but I guess it just needs to be in writing, and we need to know also, you know, if there's a parent in today's world, again, if there's a parent, for example, the issue with you know, the snowball being thrown, if we go and we try, for example, myself, if I go and I try to help or do whatever, I need to know that that parent knows that I'm doing what I feel is best, and that that parent's not going to come back and say, well, it's your fault, and you're the one who's responsible. You know, because I know Mr. Atkins, he takes a lot of the blows. You know, he takes responsibility when he's there, and, you know, I'm the principal, I'll take responsibility. But if he's not there, then a parent doesn't need to come back and say, well, you know, you're the blame, or ultimately hold you responsible. Because we know, again, I know that I'm not nitpicking. I don't want to nitpick, but again, I'm speaking from the perspective of the faculty, you know, some of our concerns. You know, and so I know we want to know also we have the backing of the board if something like this happens.
Absolutely.
Okay. Can I have that in writing? Please,
if I need to.
Again, and you know, we're all here. We all know each other, but we just feel like at Guyan Valley we've made strides. You know, since this is my 3rd year back, and you know, we've made wonderful strides. We're now a transition school, but it just seems like, you know, every time we turn around, you're just taking more of our personnel, and you know, more things from us, and you know, just leave us alone, please.
It's not just Guyan Valley, it's happening everywhere.
I know that, but it just seems like, you know, that I realize that, but it just seems like every time we turn around, you know, we made strides. You know, we've come pretty far. So, you know, we just feel like you're picking on us. I'm teasing. I can say that to you. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm part of the faculty. I didn't know if I could.
Come on up.
Okay. I just wanted to expand
You
on a
have
little bit.
to identify yourself.
Okay, Joni Shortridge, Guyan Valley Special Education. And when you brought up special ed, it really was my concern that I thought maybe we could touch on. And I talked to Mr. Atkins a little bit about my concern was more when he's out of the building, there was a counselor going, I'll give you a scenario, a student came, bipolar off medication. I did not have him in class at the current time, but he felt that he was going to explode. He, you know, removed himself, came to me, but it made me a little uncomfortable because I had to overrule and make that administrative decision, and I didn't feel like I had anyone to back me. So I felt like it was kind of me against the faculty. So I guess what my question is where do I kind of draw the line as far as making those decisions? Because I called Tara, no one was around. You know, I had a student, I had to make a decision. So I made the decision, and it worked out, but what happens if maybe I don't make the best decision at, you know, certain times? It's a gray area that I think that's where a lot of the concern is when Ms. Chapman was speaking. It's the gray area situations.
Well, and I think you as a faculty need to work in conjunction with Mr. Atkins and then whoever he may request from the board office to come up with any scenario that there may be.
Okay.
And how do I address that?
Yeah.
And then if there seem to be roadblocks along the way that you don't really see the answer, then that's when you work with Ms. Lucas on coming up with a solution to that. Because there's always going to be things out there that we never think about,
Right.
Whether you have numbers, and no matter how many administrators there are, things happen that we aren't expecting.
Right.
So, but I think the faculty certainly needs to have a lot of input into what is done there. I'm sure that's what Mr. Atkins has done before and will do again. But,
Yeah, because I've had instances too, during this transition where students have been agitated and I've had no one to relieve me. So I've actually made one student go in the restroom and just stay until I could figure out a plan. So I guess those are the kind of things.
You adapted well then.
Those are the kind of things though that I think we just want to make sure. I thought, am I going to get in trouble? I mean, is this breaking some code?
Again, I think this is something Mr. Atkins should be addressing with the faculty. When these situations occur, there should be, okay, this is what we're going to do. This, if a student comes and is very upset and agitated, what does this teacher do? And they contact this next teacher, or there should be a plan.
Okay.
Wholeheartedly, I again say to Mr. Atkins, if there is a person or persons from this office that you want to come and help address these types of issues, we'll be more than happy to do that and work with the faculty because I've been in the classroom for 28 years, many as a special education teacher, and had to deal with situations and things that come up instantly and right there, and you had to use your best instinct for that moment, regardless of how many administrators were in the building. You had to be able to contact them. How do you go about that? Is there someone in the classroom that is someone that you can send to the teacher next door to start this process in order to help alleviate a situation that might end up being a disaster or someone getting hurt, because you're looking out for the safety of the children as well as yourself.
Right. I think that, as long as we get clarification on maybe liability and policy, we don't want to break any. We were just a little concerned with the liability, wanting to make sure there's nothing unknown that there's so many different chains of command now and procedures on how you discipline, and so I think that's the main concern that we were trying to say, is a written plan of saying you can do this, that kind of thing would make us I think easier here's a little bit.
And this, is it titled the Accepted Crisis Management Plan? Is that what that is?
There's a county crisis management plan, but there should be a crisis plan for each school as to what they do for day-to-day issues that comes before them.
Let me ask this, and I think I got an answer to this after one of our prior meetings. If one of these unique situations develops and Mr. Atkins is out of the classroom, there is no one with administrative capability there, and they have a purely administrative question, is there anything that prevents them from calling the central office and getting administrative guidance immediately over the telephone?
Not at all. Actually, The principal calls here a lot. And wants to make sure that he is following what he needs to, but absolutely.
I mean, it seems to me that if you have a situation that happens immediately, you don't have time to grab an administrator even from a different floor. You have to act, you have to do something then. But if you have the time to send someone to get an administrator from the second or third floor, you would also have the time to pick up a phone and call if you had the office of the right person. I mean, look, I would love to give Mr. Aggins a vice principal. I would love nothing better. I have a child at Guyan Valley. I'll have another one there in 2 years. I went to school there. I know how big the campus is. I'm well aware of the children going out the back, through the gate, across the football field into the gym. But no one is immune to the budgetary issues that we all face, and sometimes it's a numbers game, no matter how strong the arguments you make. And I don't think anybody disagrees that all of these are valid concerns that you express. But sometimes in the end it comes down to a numbers game, and you just can't do it. Yes?
Okay, if, what we'll do, let's go to the next presenter then, and then we'll, continue our conversation then. Let's see, the community rep, I guess that'd be his part. If I'm wrong.
Hello, my name is Sue Burton, and I want to thank you all for having us back again tonight. And first of all, I would like to read a letter to you that was drafted by our Parent Advisory Council at Guyan Valley. And some of you who are not familiar with the Parent Advisory Council, it consists of myself and some very dedicated parents who, some of them are on the committee of our LSIC and our Strategic Planning Committee, things like that. So we have gotten together and drafted a letter, and I want to read it to you, and I'll also give all of you a copy. Dear Lincoln County Board of Education members, we, the parents of students of Guyan Valley Middle School, feel your decision to abolish the position of assistant principal at our school needs to be reversed. The ones who will suffer the most for the decision is our children. Our school is a 3-story school and has almost 300 students attending. The basement of our school has the cafeteria and band room. First floor is the principal's office and 8th grade students. The second floor consists of our 6th and 7th grade students, as well as an empty assistant principal's office. This office, left unattended, our students' safety is at risk. This decision also will affect our children's behavior and ultimately their academics. Our principal, Mr. Aggins, does an excellent job, but he is only one man. He attends a lot of meetings outside the school. He meets with parents, school representatives, community members, students, teachers, all while trying to maintain discipline inside the school. Not to mention all the paperwork he must accomplish. When he is out or in meetings, our kids are left without proper supervision. Who will be held responsible when he is out? Our country and times have changed, and we must make sure that our school is safe from any outside harm. We understand that things are tough financially. However, the money was already budgeted for the position for this year for assistant principal. Are our kids not worth the financial push for their safety, because ultimately our kids will be the ones who pay the price for the trickling down effect of this decision? We are asking, or should I say begging, you to reconsider your prior decision and reinstate the assistant principal position at Guyan Valley Middle. And it's signed by myself, Sue Burton, parent educator, Paula Cooper, Audrey Robinette, Missy Turley, and Nancy Cook. And I would like to give you all a copy of that letter. And I have just a couple things I want to touch on. I know the staff did an excellent job on getting the point across. However, we as parents, and we know that there's a plan of action, and we know that they want a fallback plan and things like that. But we as parents would feel much more comfortable with that extra body in the school. Because, and you all are well aware, we are a 3-story school. That second floor, I do a lot of delivering of papers and things on each floor, and that second floor is left unattended other than the teachers, and they're all in the classroom teaching their students. So that principal, the assistant principal's office down on this end is vacant. When we had an assistant principal there, they could see all down the hallways. We weren't so worried. I have 2 grandchildren that attend Guyan Valley, and both of them are on that floor, and that bothers me. Mr. Adkins is up and down the stairwells all day long, and I know that, but that extra body is so important. And a plan of action is awesome, but having that extra body, you all know yourselves with all the news and everything that goes on at different schools, school shootings and things like that. It's very important to have that extra person. And I want to share with you a little story, and then I'll let the student council give their spiel. I have a son. I only have one son. His name is Daniel, and he has 4 sons. I'm very blessed. When he was little, he was probably 5 or 6 years old, and he wanted a cookie. And I said, you can't have a cookie because it's almost dinner time. I'm going to be fixing dinner, so after dinner you can have a cookie. So I go on about my business, and I'm running the sweeper in the living room, and all of a sudden I'm thinking, why is he so quiet? Because I didn't hear anything. So I opened the kitchen door, and there's my son. He has pulled a chair out, put the chair there. On top of that chair, he put a step stool. On top of that step stool, he had a cushion. On top of that cushion, he had books. And he was like this, reaching for the cookie jar. Now, he had his hand on the lid, and guess what happened? Mom comes busting through the door. And I'm going, oh my goodness. So I walk over, gently put him down. Maybe not gently, I was mad. But I put him down. I take the books, I put them away. I take the cushion, I put it away. I put the stool away. I put the chair back under the table. I said, now, you worked hard for that cookie, but I'm still not giving it to you because you shouldn't have done that. But you worked very hard, and you did have your hand on the cookie jar. After dinner, you'll get 2 cookies. Fast forward to Guyan Valley, 30 years later. I'm nervous. 30 years later, fast forward to Guyan Valley. We have a wonderful principal. Mr. Adkins does an excellent job. We gave him an assistant principal to help boost those students so they can reach a little higher. They still couldn't reach. So we give him some counselors. They reach a little higher. Almost. Still didn't reach. Let's give him a parent educator. They reach a little higher. Still didn't reach. Let's give him some interventionists. Ooh, reach a little higher. Almost there. Let's give them some wonderful parent volunteers to give that little extra boost. Almost there. They've got the hand on the cookie jar lid. What happens? You open the door. And when you open the door, you start taking things away. And when you take those things away, they can't reach that goal. And that is so important to us as parents. We want them to reach that goal. 260 kids at Guyan Valley. I love every one of them. I've only been there a few months coming from West Hamlin, but I've watched them grow up at West Hamlin. I love all those kids. I want nothing more for them than to be safe, to enjoy going to school, and to succeed. But I feel like if you keep taking everything away from them, like someone, Ms. Chapman already touched on, just when we think we're almost there, you take it away. And if you keep taking it away, you're not going to reach that goal. So what I'm begging you tonight is don't open the door, please, for our kids. We as adults can handle it. We'll manage. We'll adjust. But our kids won't. They need everything they have to reach that goal. And I see them working harder and harder and harder. And they've almost got their hand on the lid. So please, please, don't take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Now, our student representative, do we have more than one, girls? Do y'all want to come up together, or whichever you feel better? We got a boy too, okay. What we all I'd ask is each one, who's going to talk, is just identify yourself so we'll know who you are, please.
I'm Victoria Bates. I'm the president of Garden Valley Middle School Student Council.
That's great.
I'm Perina, I'm the treasurer. I'm Lucius Sizemore, I'm the secretary.
Officers, okay. Go ahead.
For a while now, Garden Valley has been without an assistant principal. This has presented many challenges for us and our teachers. There have been times where our principal, Mr. Aggins, has been in meetings and out of the school building completely. And this is when we lack guidance and structure. This man cannot do it all. He has to be at ball games and every extracurricular activity that goes on after school. He also has a family with one arm away. He needs some help. Most importantly, we have a safety issue. And there has been times where we have seen fights and we had no one to call. And heaven forbid that the day Mr. Aggins is gone, we have a code red or something that is a security threat. Furthermore, I give you 260 reasons why we need an assistant principal.
Alex, Destiny, Emily, Garrett, Madison, Melina, Caleb, Bailey, Holly, James, Michael, Scott, Jaden, Trevor, Macy, Shelby, Jacob, Kenneth, Caitlin, Jared, Alec, Leah, Christopher, Jesse, Leah, Alyssa, Dakota, Jacob, Kara, Christopher, Andrew, Cody, Aaliyah, Brian, Brady, McKenna, Jacob, Joshua, Ron, Keaton, Destiny, Randy, Travis, Abigail, Austin, Dustin, Kelsey, Ela, Adriana, Alexander, Rachel, Olivia, Dalton, Grace, Megan, Caden, Josie, Austin, Colby, Joseph, Damon, Catherine, Hannah, Alexandria, Lindsay, Matthew, Mackenzie, Lucius, Hunter, Matthew, Caitlin, Sheridan, Skylar, Gabriella, Chauncey, George, Christopher, Kendra, Nathan, Mackenzie, Grace, Diana, Kelsey, Dustin, Courtney, Seth, Caden, Damien, Darius, Hunter, Jayla, Chanel, Kara, Alec, Jared, Wyatt, Bucky, Caden, Tyra, Terry, Ginger, Nathan, Joshua, Destiny, Zachary, Charles, Shirley, Stella, Jesse, Haley, Olivia, Jeremiah, McKenna, Sarah, Boyd, Autumn, Shane, Savannah, Matthew, Ethan, Scott, Meadow, Shannon, Greta, Kaylee, Mackenzie, Hunter, Kara, Rochelle, Samuel, Cheyenne, Jennifer, Lance, Cameron, Jessica, David, Andrea, Sebastian, Allie, Mercedes, Autumn, Dakota, Destiny, Brandon, Vanessa, Timothy, Dakota, Felix, Andrew, Shelby, Autumn, Caitlin, Cameron, Danielle, McKenna, Michael, Timothy, David, Dakota, Caitlin, Autumn, Rebecca, Samantha, Isaac, Sarah, Caleb, Sarah, Jimmy, Brandon, Jeffrey, Tiffany, Ethan, Nathan, Zachary, Alicia, Terry, Haley, Savannah, Rachel, Zane, Danielle, Casey, Caitlin, Olivia, Bailey, Prue, Heather, Lindsay, Haley, Samuel, Megan, Nika, Austin, Andrew, Brian, Kristen, Cameron, Michael, Robert, Brianna, Caitlin, Dylan. Colton, Jerica, Tanisa, Brandon, Logan, Bailey, Tyler, Samuel, Alex, Colby, Dakota, Dylan, Caleb, Madison, Michael, Robert, Shelby, Chelsea, Amber, Victoria, Tria, Herman, Colton, Dustin, Amber, Rosa, Caitlin, Alex, Gabriel, Cameron, Jared, Brittany, Jerica, Daniel, Lucas, Dakota, Emily, Shayna, Maria, Kayla, Emily, Victoria, Connie, Ian, Madison, Henson, Chelsea, Garrett, Carrie, Travis, Jaden, Zachary, Lance, Brittany, Michael, Cody.
You did an excellent job of personalizing it. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us? I mean, we understand the idea that you're all trying to convey to us, certainly, as the others have too. Is there anything else that you want to say to us?
No, I think we've covered it. Thank you.
You've done a good job.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Any members of the board have any comments or questions of any of the groups of speakers we've had? Anything in addition on that? Mr. Baker here's made some valid points. Anything else?
Mr. Agnew, when you leave the building, do you put someone in charge?
I really don't have anybody to put in charge, Mr. Curry. There's nobody really able to leave the classrooms to do that. I mean, I you know, of course, we have a counselor there at most points of the day, you know, but honestly, and these are just my personal feelings, in a middle school, you know, sometimes the students are much larger than in an elementary setting. And I think that's maybe why this is unique, as we are the only middle school without an assistant. And sometimes those students, they're bigger, and sometimes even meaner and bigger than some of the teachers. Maybe not meaner, but at least bigger. They would appreciate that comment. Yeah. And honestly, you know, and please don't take this as any type of comment, but there are times that some of the boys are intimidating, especially to a smaller, petite-framed counselor, and that's some of the concern there.
Ms. Lewis?
I do. As a superintendent, I am charged with lots of things. One of the things I am charged with is making sure that we're financially sound. Lincoln County is not a county that has a lot of industry. We're not as fortunate as our surrounding counties with our taxes. And I know it gets complicated as far as looking at what the state tells me that I must do when it comes to giving us funding for positions based on the size of our county. And they give us specific guidelines and numbers that we must comply with. That's beyond my control. I never want you to think that the students are not at the forefront of my decisions. The decisions that I'm having to make at this point when you talk about personnel season is difficult. It becomes very emotional for me because I'm having, and I have to set aside looking at people. I'm looking at what the state tells me I must do. I have requirements when it comes to schools, who I must have to staff those schools. I don't get to pick and choose in that respect. I'm told that the legislators are very clear on what they put in place. And then the Department of Education writes the policies. And as a superintendent, I must follow those. The board makes sure that I am following what's put before me in those policies. If I do not, I'm not doing my job. And at this point in time, I'm going to defer to Ms. Gandy. She is going to tell you the number of positions that the state says that Lincoln County needs to run their school system. And she's also going to tell you the number of positions that we are operating our schools with, that the state does not fund us for, that the county, in what money that we have as a county, must pay for. And that we are at the point that we cannot run this system with that many positions over. We don't have the funding, and no one's going to give it to us. So, Ms. Gandy?
Okay, as Trish said, everything that we're doing, it's not because Ms. Lucas, Mr. McKibben, this board wants to do. Everything that we do comes from Charleston, it's pushed down to us, and we have to push it down to the schools. So we did our second month enrollment, we did our certified list, they have all of our data, so they come out with preliminary comps. We take that information everybody needs, and we look, how many positions are we going to be funded for next year? How many are we going to be over? How many can we afford to absorb without going into a deficit? So what I presented to the board is, if we do nothing at all, we're going to be over 40 positions. And 14 of those will be professional instructional people. 2.13 of those will be counselors and nurses. 16.29 of those are service people. So when I attach a dollar amount to that, 40 positions over, that's $1.8 million that we don't have. And as she said, we're bound by law to not let this county go into a deficit. If we go into a greater than 3% deficit, then those board members are going to be personally liable. And the other thing that happens, if we don't have money, we can't pay people. You know, and we're kind of sitting right now, you know, had to make sure I had enough money to meet payroll for Friday. So we don't have a choice. We don't have a choice. When our numbers get out of line, we have to cut. And there's lots and lots of thought that goes into this, and we just have to stay within our budgetary guidelines. And again, it's not us, it's not Lincoln County Board of Ed, it's coming through the State Department of Ed. And they are in turn, you know, they're guided by the legislature. It's all a funding formula.
We're not given a line of credit. They will not let us, you know, this is what we're giving you to run your school system on. We can withstand so many positions maybe over what they give us, but we cannot continue with, we cannot afford the 40. And these are hard decisions, and I want you all to understand these are very difficult decisions. I don't make these in isolation. I don't just wake up some morning and say, you know what, I'm going to not fill that position when Mr. Roy took a principalship. I had discussions with Mr. Atkins. He's never been blindsided by the decisions. I have open conversation and communication with each principal. There are cuts in federal dollars that's being given to us that will be reflected in some positions that will not be in next year. I have absolutely no control over that. But I have to work within the dollar amount that they give us. Now, I heard you all referring to the counselor. Now, when I'm looking at realigning and what to do for the school year, next year, my plan, and you know, my plan is not always carried out. You know, I have people that I answer to as well. But my plan is to recommend that Guyan Valley have a full-time counselor. And you talk about that second floor not having that other set of eyes. There's an office that the counselor could be that other person. But someone that's not there, as we have it now, two half-time positions, but a full-time. But again, those positions were guided by a grant when a grant is given to us, and it's only here for 3 to 5 years or 2 years, if we cannot sustain that person's salary or those people, we have to terminate those positions. I don't enjoy doing that. That's not something that makes me very happy. Actually, it makes me very unhappy. And the thinking and the planning. We go through this a couple of months before I ever make the final recommendations. But as far as looking like I'm picking on Gain Valley, I am not picking on any one school. So many things guide my decisions regarding the funding that is placed before us. We have Title I funding, which is federal dollars. We have special education funding, which is also federal dollars. We have Title II funding. We have several lines of funding that we have no control over. What the state sends us, what they say, Lincoln County, this is what you need to run your school, and you don't need anything else. Well, we know better. We do know that we need, but they're not going to give me any more money. So the decisions that are made are not easy decisions, and I have to be a responsible superintendent. Otherwise, you know, I'm not doing my job.
Are we allowed to petition the state on your behalf?
Absolutely.
Well, that's just what I was getting to. So the next move should be legislature. If we as parents.
Let me just interject here. That would be great, but this is not a new dilemma for any county. This is something we've dealt with. Those counties who are more affluent are able to deal with it better. Our county, Boone County, I think, is one of the more affluent counties as far as what they bring in. You know, a lot of coal mines also. They bring in a lot of extra money locally. Like Ms. Lucas pointed out, we're 40 people over the formula. In other words, the state has a formula that they use, and it's based on the number of students you have. Saying we lost 50 students from last year to the next year, so losing those 50 students automatically meant we're going to lose X amount of dollars. But the school aid formula is kind of a complicated thing, but they give you, based on the number of students you have, so much money for professionals, so much money for service people, and there's different steps on down through there. But this is nothing new. Those of you, I don't know, some may have been around 20 years ago or so when the Lincoln County case was filed here in West Virginia. Ultimately, the REC decision on the schools were not funded equitably, and the schools with poor property bases and all that were suffering. And it came from our county. And eventually that got resolved, and they did some changes in the school aid formula to make that not as harmful on counties like ours. But it didn't correct the overall problem. There are all kinds of positions that I'm sure that if you went around to Mr. Adkins or any of our principals or staff, they would say, we would love to have other positions in ours. We'd love to have full-time counselors. We'd like to have nurses, all kinds of things that would be great to have and would be great for our kids to have. But unfortunately, we can't afford all of those kind of things. So oftentimes we're forced to just say, what must we have? At the elementary school, we know we're bound by law that we can't have any more kids in those certain grades. In kindergarten, you can have 20, like you can have 23 with an exemption, but you can't have 24. So we know that at the elementary schools, they're limited, as they are in grades 1 through 6, where they can only have so many kids. That's why, and you know, the high school feels like it gets picked on a lot when these things happen because they don't have those mandates. So her hands are tied immediately at the elementary. When she meets with each one of those elementary principals, they're looking at the projections of the students, where they're going to be next year and how many teachers you're going to need. But she knows that she is very limited in what she can cut there, or ask us to cut, I guess. But at these other, there are other areas that, although they're not what you'd like to see, and you still say, well, you know, we can cut this, and you know, we can do it. Do we want to? No. Is it ideal? No. But sometimes we have to make those decisions. But it just makes it hard on the superintendent as she analyzes these, because her options are very limited. And it comes down to oftentimes, not really extras, but things that, for some counties would be just accepted, and, you know, we have to have these, we're gonna pay for them out of our local money, that we have to make some hard decisions sometimes of what we can afford to do with our, what extra monies we have. Right.
Let me ask this, I'm not sure which of you two is the right person to ask, but do you know what the average number of students per administrator is countywide?
County?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want you to identify a particular school, but I think that the parents have said there's roughly 262, is that the right number? Students at Guyan Valley to one administrator. Do we know, looking at all the schools together, what that number averages out to?
Well, I was gonna say, right down to, West Hamlin, they have, twice as many students. They have 567 students, and they only have a principal and an assistant.
So the ratio is roughly the same.
So when you look at Duval, 557 students. You look at Midway, they have 313 students, they only have one. So, you know, it's about.
May I ask a question? Okay. I understand, Ms. Lucas, your job is very hard, and I wouldn't want to make your decisions. I do have a question, though. We know that they're in the budget, it's budgeted this year for an assistant principal at Guyan Valley. So therefore, we would like to ask, where does that money go? Do you put it back into the budget to save up for whatever, or where does that money go? Because we are under the assumption that the money is there for the remainder of this year for an assistant, since it was already budgeted. So make us understand why the money is not there when it's already budgeted for that position.
Well, whenever you look at a budget, and Ms. Gamby will let you, she may be able to answer this as well, but we probably have added some positions since that budget, because the budget was made last year, okay, for this year. And as you heard, we're right now 40 positions over. So it's not a surplus. Like it's not over here just waiting. It's being used to pay some of these other salaries, because I know for a fact we've had to add some aides for some special education students that we had to. So the money is being used. It's not just sitting over there not being used, because we don't have a surplus.
You don't have an allotted amount, say it was budgeted for that purpose only?
No, it is not budgeted for that purpose only.
We have unexpected things happen. When school starts, we may have an influx of students at a school that we weren't expecting. So we were planning on maybe having 2 kindergarten classes, let's say. All of a sudden, we get more kids that have moved in that area. Now we have to have 3 kindergarten kids, or teachers. Well, we never budgeted for that. So that means we're going to have to come up with some funding from some other way to cover that mandated need for that teacher there. That just would be an example of the unexpected things that happen when school starts.
And just kind of, let me give you an example. When we went through the budgeting last year, we had budgeted to be over 90 people. When we actually get the numbers, we're actually over 40 people. So it's going to take every penny that we can save between now and the end of the school year to keep us from going into deficit. So it just all goes into a pot. And, you know, they determine the positions that's needed, as Mr. Priestley said. You just can't budget for unexpected. And you have to follow the laws to do staffing activities.
Ms. Bennett.
When Mr. Atkins, do we send a sub there to, in his position?
Unless he's just over here for a couple of hours or something, if he's gone to a conference, or if he's sick, we do send a substitute administrator.
So there is usually, I know not all the time, but usually there is someone in charge there.
Yes. Is that correct?
Yeah, if I'm out sick, if I'm at a conference, if it is a personal, sick, or professional leave day, then yeah, they always fill that. Now, again, if it's principal's meeting and I'm, here from 9 to 1, then there's that window that I'm not in the building that isn't covered.
But they call you a lot or text you, you're in constant communication
Yeah.
during that time, and I know that you've called and you've gone out and to take phone calls,
Oh, yeah.
so.
I have another question, and I know this, I don't want this to put hope in your heart of something good gonna happen, but was questioning Bertie a little bit before the meeting. What if we had something like a dean of students there? Maybe somebody that's already employed, but give them a little supplement to be there like more often. We wouldn't have to cut in on their insurances and stuff like that, but just to have somebody there. Or maybe a part-time principal, but still teach, you know what I'm talking about?
I wish I could.
Yeah.
It's not
so
that something that maybe that I hadn't considered, but I've had to look at every.
She does. I know this lady stays awake at night worrying about how she's going to do this, and it bothers me too because I have grandchildren there, and I know where you guys are coming from. I don't want to go up there a major problem, and go up there and say who's in charge, and everybody just look at each other like we don't know. Somebody's got to be there, and I was thinking maybe if they could be a teacher, but yet the acting part as a principal, also a charge person, on the dean of students, but still teach. You know what I'm talking about? A little extra pay, and not hire the whole person, just to have one.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Just to wrap up.
John.
I just want to say, of course, I think my folks that came here tonight are very passionate, and I appreciate them. They support me, my staff, and my parents, and my students. We have a very good relationship, and they support me, and I'm very, very grateful for them and for their sacrifices. These folks are sitting here for no other reason than because they love their school. I'm not going to say because they love me, it's because they love their school. But I just on this conversation, hearing that your plan is to post a full-time counselor position, those are the things that I think that I know they encourage me, and I think they encourage my staff as well to know that. There's plans being made, and sometimes it's not what we want, but it's something, and that goes a long way, And again, that's saying that, and I've told Mrs. Lucas this, and I know her job isn't easy, neither is mine, and we have to make decisions that, when you're in these types of positions, you make decisions that nobody's happy sometimes, but as the old saying goes, it is what it is, and I just want to say that. We know those decisions are tough. We know that you'll do everything that you can to help us. Again, it may not always be what we want, but at least it's something, and we're very grateful for that and very appreciative of that. I think collectively our big concern is safety. Is always our first priority, but also there's the achievement. The student achievement part of that, and we want to make sure that our students are achieving. First and foremost, that they're safe and sound and healthy, and secondly is that they're achieving and doing the very best that they can. We have plans, and we do work together. You always have a couple of people that may try to throw a wrench in the spokes here and there, but overall, our school is a very solid school. It's a very good school. We're very cooperative. And we will do whatever it takes to succeed. And I think just hearing you say that support is here often from the central office, and that there are plans to again put the counselor in place, or whatever those plans may be, goes a long way in saying I think that we're cooperative, and this is just a tough time, and we all have to work through this together. Nobody likes this these budget problems that we're facing, and I think we can all agree on that. But, you know, I think as long as we have those lines of communication open and that we are willing to work with one another and say, hey, you know, help us in whatever way that you can. You know, I know that satisfies me, and I'm sure that that satisfies my folks that are here with me tonight. Again, it may not be the greatest of situations or circumstances, but we'll, you know, I think this statement is true for West Virginians and Lincoln County, and we'll make the best out of whatever situation is dealt to us. You know, and we'll just move on from there. So, you know, I just want to personally, again, thank those that are here tonight in support and their passion that they've shown, and I want to thank you, Mrs. Lucas, and the board for, you know, doing everything that you possibly can, given the circumstances that you're dealt to work with in order to help us. So.
Thank you. Before everyone else has their say, I have to say that if you ever need me again for a ball game, Mr. Adkins was sick, and I know we have to have administrators, so I did go over.
She did.
And, you know, I'll be happy to do that again.
I'm going to pick one that I know that has the
It wasn't very calm game, but as I have said to him and to any of the other principals, if they need me, I will do whatever I can to help. If it is going to be the administrator of the school, I will, you know, offer my services, and if I have to be there at the ball games, I will do that as well. I am here to, you know, help this system, and I love seeing the kids, you know, in different settings other than just in the classroom. But, you know, I appreciate everything that you all have said tonight, and certainly appreciate the students, seeing them in a leadership role. That's impressive. Having to come to speak before the board. You all did an outstanding job, and I thank you.
Any members of the board have any other comments?
Well, I'd just like to say I go back, might as well admit it, I go back 50-some years in dealing with various aspects of the school system. And I've been to some board meetings before as a superintendent. When the people came to speak, they were, I'm sorry, they were rude and crude. This has been one of the nicest group of people I've ever heard make a presentation at a board meeting.
Anything else, anybody else? Once again, just to reiterate, so you can't keep that hand down, can you?
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I would just like to commend the board, and I would like to commend Ms. Lucas, not about tonight, what we discussed, but the roads this winter. Thank you very much.
Yes.
For keeping our kids safe.
Thank you.
I know we missed a lot of school, but our kids are safe. And I just want to thank you for that. I think you made some excellent calls this winter on keeping our kids off those icy roads. There was some mornings I was waiting by the phone. Come on, Miss Lucas, have you call me? I heard you call. I don't want to put my boys on those roads, and they called. And I just want to say thank you for that, for keeping our kids safe. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
You light up at Facebook too, I know that. Okay, once again, we do appreciate, we understand where you're coming from. Ms. Lucas, you hear parts of it, but she also has me coming in and visiting her occasionally. What are we going to do up there? So she shared with me the idea of the counselor just earlier today, and that made me feel a little bit more at ease. That if we want to have a full-time counselor there, and that could be somebody that, of course, that's up to Mr. Atkins there, could be situated on the second floor. Maybe that'd help to offset. It might not be the ideal, but at least it's something that you know, could help with the situation. But, you know, she's got a lot of pressure on her from all different.
I see a hand going up.
Yes, I think they're good.
Can
Go
we keep
ahead.
the one we have, our counselor?
Well,
We bonded. We bonded.
I was just glad that we're getting one.
No, I'm happy for that. Yes, thank you.
If it'll make you guys feel any better before all these cuts are done, we'll probably have every school in the county sitting right where you're sitting. But I hope they're as nice as what you guys have been.
Once again, thank you very much for coming, and we take into consideration everything you say, and if it's all possible, we try to adapt and do those things. Sometimes it's beyond our ability to do so, but don't think that we aren't, student safety is our number one concern, I assure you of that. And I know that's what this lady is, whether it's an icy morning or something that goes on at school. So thanks for coming, and we'll be talking about you. But only in a good way.